time that they can still do it if they didn't do it yet, but close so that they feel motivated to do it for the meeting. Yeah, something like that. So it's like one person that has the specific role of pinging people, and that's the only role. But I think it's very important because we tend to, I don't know, I think most people tend to be bad at prioritizing and then say, yeah, this is something that will only take me 2 hours, and it keeps getting put off, and then the time when it should have been done comes and it was not done. So like having someone mail you and asking you how is it going, do you think you will make it, is useful. So
as long as you need to choose someone who has the right tone and doing
yes, it has to be someone with social skills, but it also has to be accepted by the team that this person has this role, and it's not personal, it's a help for the whole functioning of the team. Yeah, so this was one idea.
I think that's a good idea, and I think we should propose it to the mailing list that we discussed it today. And did you want to be that person that we nominate?
Not really. So at least when we did it in Argentina, it was one person that had this role and
is
so
as a glorified
any other responsibility than pinging people, and this allowed this person to do this job very well.
I think
so. If I take this responsibility, I can't take anything else. And since I'm planning on taking other things, I would prefer other person to take it.
Okay, so should we ask the mailing list if anybody wants to do this, or do you have anyone particular in mind?
I don't have someone in mind.
Okay, then I think we should send an email to the list and explain this. Are there any questions or objections in this round? I don't think so. Okay, consensus.
Maybe ask for volunteers to be sent to someone, like sent to Margot or something, and then you can choose. Because it's kind of hard if someone just volunteers publicly on the list. It's hard to reply to them saying, no, you don't have the requisite social skills.
You don't have social.
Maybe first you should have a list of all tasks better to be distributed before you decide to take one out.
The point is that that person shouldn't have any tasks.
No, but I mean,
that person should know which task they should
reproducing.
No, of course, but this will change with time.
Yes.
So, for example, I don't know, the sponsorship brochure was something that was being done. As soon as it's finished. So you don't need to think about it anymore, and you can focus on something else.
This I see it as a new volunteer, someone that just arrived on the team that you can. That's willing to take this role, but not someone that is already involved with the organization will be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know what to do. Are there any other ideas from teams that they would like to discuss, like DC15 members, or even questions from the outside, maybe, in preparation for this session? No? Okay.
You mean
just general, like you know that the session is going on, you came here, maybe you have an agenda, maybe you want to say something. If you're here just to listen in, that's perfect.
Somebody checking IC whether something.
I am checking IC.
I'm off.
I didn't really read what the agenda was meant to be for this meeting. I just saw it seemed sensible to turn up.
I think we didn't have any agenda.
Not really. We had one in our heads somehow. But I have one idea I would like to resonate, just get a sort of like general feedback. And that's relating to the food selection, the food that we cater to at DebConf. And I know this is a contentious issue with some people, but I would personally like to see DebConf head more in the direction of not defaulting to serving meat every day. So making vegetarian be more of a standard default option, and then make meats twice a day or something like that. So it seems more like you just. I have this problem. Meat twice per meal. I messed this up the entire week already. But is there anything that, I mean, we can discuss this for 2 hours now, or we can just sort of like generally raise hands and just simply say, yeah, this is something we can imagine doing. It's probably going to take us a couple of years to even get there, and there's going to be many flame wars, or do you have anything against it outright here at the start?
No, I just I would completely support the idea. I think if it's well done, there will be no reason for a complaint first. If it's well done, yeah.
People will always complain, but yeah.
It mainly depends
Well,
on.
it would avoid what we have sometimes. Like for example, cheese and wine party, there will be some cheese, vegan cheese, but then the other people can't eat the vegan cheese because there's only a small portion. But if we think that it interests more a broader public, then it should have more vegan cheese, because I am not strictly vegan, but I would like to eat the vegan cheese.
Yeah.
So this kind of situation always happens, and I think it's something, if you want to try out different things, I would totally
I
support.
would say it's the best, if you want to do that, the best way is actually by not trying to make it a big discussion at all,
Exactly.
but just saying this is the food that's being provided.
Like so many things in that.
Indeed. Because if you have a discussion, especially the worst case is if you propose it as on ethical grounds.
Yeah, or talk with Steve
Whatever.
McIntyre about it.
So if you just say this is the food that's being provided, then whatever.
I think one thing should be that there's no checkbox if you like to have vegan or non-vegan or normal food, maybe diet food, because this year I checked vegan food because I like meat but also like vegan, but it doesn't matter at all here, so this checkbox was completely
But
unuseful.
it would matter a lot next year.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
this is-
Because if you have the one day where you have meat, you need to provide something else for those people who are not eating meat.
Right.
And if you have a day with vegetarian anyway, you don't need to care about vegetarians extra, because
The only other thing I'd say is that if you're only having vegetarian stuff on any particular day, it becomes much more important to allow for the fact that lots of people are just picky here. And so if you have something that's a nice, healthy, mixed vegetarian meal, it may be that half the people who are the meat eaters, who are only used to eating meat and potatoes, just refuse to eat it.
Yeah, then we do that 10 years in a row, and then they.
I mean,
But I understand your point, but-
Stop being endemic.
Let's stop discuss this.
Okay.
I mean, this is not a local. I mean,
No, it's
local
not.
team meeting. It's a long-term plan. So
Well, yeah, but if we are saying we will do it this next year, yeah.
That's what's being
It
proposed.
will
Sounds like
be-
a good idea.
Yeah.
It will be really hard next year, by the way, because Germany is not as advanced when it comes to vegetarianism and veganism yet as some other parts of this world. And I've talked to the youth hostel already about this in preparation. But if I feel that there is a consensus or some sort of like backup, which I feel that I can
I
increase the
think it's
pressure on
easier
the-
to do in the environment of staying in a youth hostel place and being in the city. That firstly it fits. It's not surprising in the surroundings in a way, and people have other options.
Yeah.
I think in some other setups, people might be more likely to object. But
Yeah.
But we tried the food in the youth hostel, and they did have vegetarian food also.
Yeah, they cater to everything except for kosher, but I'm trying to push them to actually be more vegetarian oriented. And anyway, we'll talk about this more. Thank you very much for the feedback. Then I guess we should get to the main point that spawned this meeting. And that,
Wait,
Which is-
other people may also have ideas that
I
they
did
want
ask
to.
earlier. I said it. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's do the sponsorship thing,
No,
and
let's-
then I
it's
can.
fine.
Yeah,
Are
let's
there
do
other-
the one
the
thing I'm just remembering to say, which is kind of from some of the previous topic, but is a general thing really, or not, the topic before last, is just about the teams and so on in general, that it is important not to keep people happy, but for the lowering the stress and amount of work needed by the people who are from Germany or in this room, to actively reach out to and pull back in people who've been involved in previous years, which means people who've been in particular teams this year, but also maybe in the last year or two. Many years people kind of just assume that it's those people's responsibility to get involved again if they want to, which is obviously true. But if you just take that attitude, it leaves that everything needs to be done by a limited number of people. So even though it's annoying to have to reach out to someone and be very polite and say you ran the network team 2 years ago, or you were interested in doing it and you were really great, maybe we can put you in charge of the network team because you're so wonderful, whatever. When maybe it feels like it's much easier just to get on and do it yourself. By the time it comes to DebConf, for the months leading up to it, it's really a problem if you don't have those people. So maybe in the same, well, it's partly something that someone in particular could take charge of, a bit like the poking people job, but also it's something everyone should think about if you're involved in a topic, just to actively be trying to get people from previous years, because otherwise you really have, again, there's a problem with manpower, but also even if you have 1 million people in Germany, again, you want to keep them involved next year, so the year after or the year after when they're somewhere useless that doesn't have enough local volunteers, they're there.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
There's no good easy way, I think. It basically just means whoever's in any, again, someone could do it if they took it as a job, to kind of re-recruit previous people, and just looking through previous years' team lists and including on the wiki or final reports. But also it needs, in some respects, it needs to come from people working in particular areas. So say if someone's working in the networking area, they should look who's worked on networking before and try and actively ping those people. And again, it's a problem about the tone, because you need, like for pinging people, because it's not enough to say, I'm running networking now, do you want to come and be my servant? Because they will just say no. You need to be, at least in tone, saying that their ideas are going to be very important and so forth.
Yeah. I think we are doing this here and there already. Yeah. Maybe we can do it a little more. It's also dependent on what time you're in.
Exactly. But it's something that's relevant to the next few months.
So we are working with a sponsorship team, and Norman Garcia and Brian Gupta are pretty much on the team again. And then, for instance, with regards to website and stuff, I'm working very hard this entire week already to get Gerald and Case and Steve Langashek and Petty to be enticed to keep developing what we have this year and make it even better.
But that's the management system, I think.
Exactly, yes, and possibly integrate the website. I mean, we'll see about that. And then talks, team, scheduling, and so on, that comes much later. But in some ways, I feel that is a given anyway. In some ways, it needs to be communicated. It
makes sense to reach out to them quite early on, even if they're not starting working until later.
Right, so one of the things that we will be discussing in DC15 over the next couple of months is taking in the feedback from DC14, what they did differently, try to decide what density of talks we want and so on, and that's a good thing to get the talks
involved. But again, really, at this stage, in a way, the most important thing is just not doing anything that goes against that. Because 1 or 2 previous years, the things that happened, like people posting on the wiki their new list of teams with members only from the local team, and some set of people, not really in any rational way, but would just be annoyed at that and say, well, I'm not going to help them then.
So we have that for DC15. We did start a list like that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's been yet a cause of conflict. So
no, but it's
a good point to keep in mind that we should not.
I think we should not publish that list and tell people to enter themselves, but we should attract the people and then enter them.
Exactly.
And then suddenly they find themselves on the list.
I mean, yeah, you can. If it's a wiki thing, you can also just add them in advance, but you need to know who's really doing it. There's not enough in their name to be there if they're not actually doing the work.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other issues, questions, ideas, thoughts, concerns?
So there's a list with people, team lists and so on that we can from the previous years.
From previous years?
From the previous conference, yeah.
Yeah. That should exist.
Yeah, well, again, partly final reports and partly other stuff on the wiki.
Yeah, I think the current team list is not authoritative.
No.
There is one for DC14, but there's lots of ellipses, and maybe we should go with the team lead and figure out who these people actually were in the end to approach them.
I mean, I definitely know the video team on the wiki is like Carl, one other person, and then my name under volunteers. And I know that there's more than 3 people on video team for DC14. Like, it's just, I know the volunteer stage is literally just me.
I think final reports are a good source of information.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of final reports,
You're going to write the DebConf15 one this week.
The DebConf15 one is already done. We're talking about the 14 one. No, but I guess you may have followed this already. You may know about this already. But DDA went and already created the structure and the empty document for the DC14 final report. And even though that is theoretically the job of the DC14 team to finish, we all know that it is really good if everyone helps, especially the next team. And it's in our main interest to do that. And so I would simply like to remind everyone that it would be really cool if you could take, during this conference, on the way home or at home, take half an hour time and just jot together stuff, collect material, or even write an article. Sometimes that's fun, some people like doing that.
Yeah, well, Steve actually mentioned that today in a stand-up meeting. He said all the stress has been winding down, and he urged the DC14 people to start thinking about the final report, also coming up with ideas. I mean, that's great, but in the end it needs somebody who writes the chapter, right? So, I don't know, maybe we can talk to them and say, well, we will do it differently this year, but in the past years it was that people contributed chapters and then they got edited by other people who did the final report. And if you just have people start, looking at blog posts and stuff, that's useful, but I think the real main work is writing the chapters. I think it's a very good thing Didier came up with this primary and secondary chapters, so if the network team fails to come up with something, at some point we will just ship it with, and that's a good thing, but there's a couple of things, yeah.
Okay, so I will personally see through the budget and accounting chapter, which seems to be one of the core chapters, and if somebody else is willing to do that. I have this dream that at the end of the conference, the organizing team meets with the next organizing team for a day, and then doing the final report is part of that day, and also like learning from each other and discussing what went good and what went bad. It would be really useful to have at this conference because of the experimentation that we're doing. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I think we would like to actually plan it and announce it for DC15, so that everybody knows already by the time they book flights that they're sort of like invited to stay a day longer, which of course can be combined with perks like dinner and stuff. I mean, that's all doable, right? So anyway, bottom line, final report. If you feel like you have half an hour or an hour, or on the way home you would like to write something, talk to DDA, or talk to anyone of us.
Before you go home.
Before you go home, exactly. And I hope we can make this happen.
Right. No, don't just start writing chapters without hearing.
Yeah, talk to DDA.
Yeah, but you can claim
On the wiki, yes,
you can claim in the wiki if you know you're a good candidate.
Okay. Good. Other things?
The sponsor thing?
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
Well, there's also the talk you have to give on Friday.
Do we need to talk about that? Or is that under control? I mean, you and Richie have been working very hard, and
Well, we should discuss who's going to actually go to the. Well, I don't know. We can discuss it later. We can do some.
let's discuss later. I mean, I think everybody who can be there will be there, because that's one of the times when you actually get to show your face and take credit for the work that you've already done. So, isn't it?
Well, also
Yes, but
that
we
you
cannot
will
just
do,
show up.
because
Yeah, but we've already done a lot of work, and we get to present that now, and so that's a motivation. But yeah, it's also a promise to the future commitment. All right, then let's talk briefly about the sponsorship brochure. So the process, what happens, it was a little bit up and down here and there everywhere, and I did have a particularly bad day in the middle of it too, and pushed things that made some people angry. I think that we've talked between those people and myself enough to the point where all the bad feelings have been taken under control, and I also don't think that any steps have been taken which are irreversible because they are in any way public. The process that we're at the moment is that we're now pretty much somewhere in the middle between DC team looking at the sponsorship brochure and DC15 team making a final decision. We had the sponsorship brochure more or less done, and we pushed it out to the sponsors team. And there were many discussions on the IRC channel. Not many people had a lot of time, but Brian provided very insightful feedback. Norman Garcia provided very insightful feedback, and there was a statement from Norman saying that as far as he can tell, this brochure is ready to be presented to DC team, which I took to mean I don't even know what the sponsors team is exactly made up of, but Norman is certainly one of the people who has been doing a lot of work, so I trust that he gave me the go-ahead on this one, and I sent the brochure to DC team last week, about a week ago, with a request for comments, and also with, I believe I listed all of the different points that were questionable. And so far I have not seen any feedback, which obviously can also be attributed. Yeah, that means consensus, right? Which is obviously attributable to travel.
Some event that's happening.
And some event that's happening, yeah. We wanted to not wait very much longer with this brochure because of DC14. There was a sort of like self-imposed deadline that maybe we could hand out or have them already like display the sponsorship brochure to some people at DC14, but also FrostCon, which I thought would happen next weekend. It already happened, unfortunately.
Last weekend.
Yeah, it happened last weekend. So there was a little bit of a problem there. However, I still think that we should keep up the pace now and get this finished as soon as possible, because the budgeting season starts for the big companies, and if we want to be in the budget that's going to be finalized in October and November, then we really need to get a move on. We've already had the first request from a potential platinum sponsor for the sponsorship brochure, saying that they close their budgeting at the end of August. So yeah, it's in the RT.
Well, they closed their planning for whatever, it was a special thing, but yes. Anyway, yes.
I don't know.
In effect, it's the same thing.
There's also Debbie and
They have a
developer
deadline.
involved. So we're in a very good position here. But this is important information to know, and I think we should not wait any longer. And I don't think there's much of a reason to wait much longer if the terms that we promise in the sponsorship brochure at this point in time are something that we can reach agreement on.
On the specific point about that sponsor, I would say it's not vital to resolve all the remaining questions before that, because you could also send them a version of the brochure that removes the potentially contentious points.
Yeah.
And just send that now, today.
Yeah, that's true. So Marga and I had already talked about this, that the
most of the contentious things have been removed.
Well, I can say I've not had time to look at
Yeah.
the most recent version. I looked at the original one, the discussions, I've not had time to.
Yeah. So most of the most contentious stuff has been removed. There's still some stuff in there, and I do want to quickly resonate that in the room, the individual points. But we already talked about that we could actually have version 1 right now, or version 0, and then we can make 2 forms of changes. We can add perks and sell them later, although that is a little bit of a problem, because maybe the first sponsor wanted to do the conference dinner.
Sponsors can always ask for something personalized that's not in the brochure anyway, so it's not. I don't
That's
see
true.
the problem.
That's true. We've never done this before, though.
We have done special things for individual sponsors before.
Right, but we've not.
We've not done different versions, but.
Right. And we can also, if we modify the brochure maybe slightly, the wording, we could potentially actually increase the levels later. Obviously, we can't ever decrease them. So, yes, we can take whatever we have and have potentially a minimal version and push that out. But I don't think we're very far from having something that at least the people that have been working on it feel comfortable with, and hopefully other people can be persuaded of. I will quickly summarize what the contents of the brochure is. It is based on the DC13 brochure, and we did change a little bit the contents of the text, or rephrased it a little bit, which also I think freshens it up a little. You know, the sponsors see it every year again. And we did remove, for instance, Debbie and Day, because we would like to have an open weekend on the first weekend, have the entire weekend open. But that's surely to be discussed, how exactly we're going to do that. We are going to offer supporter, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, the standard levels, and there's been a little bit of a back and forth on how expensive they should actually be. Now, as of late, our last proposal is that we should have the bronze level start at 2,500, which is a step up, euros, yeah, which is a step up, big step up from BC13. Then have the silver level be 5,000, 10,000, and 20,000, basically very nicely ×2 numbers, which altogether is more or less the same as DC13. So basically we pushed up bronze. And the reason why, in the end, I wanted to raise them up more, because I think there's potential for that, but with the perks that we offer, I think that maybe it's going to pan out anyway. So what are some of these perks that we offer? And what are the contentious ones? Can you give me the URL, because I have this.
Yeah, you can use this.
For that, yeah, can do. Okay, so there are two classes of perks that we would like to think about, consider. One of them is, or three classes actually. One of them is events and aspects of the conference that we offer anyway and would like to give a sponsor the possibility to adopt. The second class is events or perks that are not necessary, but we would like to give a sponsor the opportunity to give. For instance, provide coffee to all of the people if you are a coffee geek. And then there is also the idea of having booths for sponsors, especially when we have an opening weekend, allowing sponsors to present themselves, and also have something that we refer to as a job fair, which is basically removed from all the where all the people are, a little bit further back into a room, allowing sponsors to actually engage in direct conversation with potential candidates that they would like to hire, in combination also with a job board. So the questions are a little bit, can we imagine having sponsored booths? Do we think that a job fair is an idea that could take off? And then and scroll down. And then the additional sponsoring opportunities, which at the moment are that we would like to offer the conference dinner, which is certainly the biggest expense in this sense, that we would like to offer.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's the biggest item individually, but anyway, carry on.
No, room and board, obviously, but
even day trip can be more or so on.
Sure. Okay. So day trip and conference dinner are the first two anyway. And there's a little bit of a description, like a marketing type description of why this would be a cool thing to contribute to DebConf and so on. Snacks and beverages, basically the subsidy of the bar, which I think we're going to have to do it at DebConf15. Cheese and wine party, the venue has agreed finally to let us do that on site, but they're going to charge us $2.50 per person. And
50 euros.
That's €2.50 or €250?
Yeah, €250 per person.
It's not much money.
Yeah. It's not much money, and we get glasses, we get wine glasses, we get cutlery, they clean up.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. It's not too bad. We would like to save that money, obviously, by cleaning up ourselves and so on, but we can't do it.
That's very
Yeah.
Well, 50 times 250.
Yeah, money's money.
Money is money.
Yeah, but if we get a sponsor to pay for that, it's really cheap.
Well, if we get
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coffee.
Well,
If we get a sponsor to
I
pay
think
for
what
everything,
Martin
it's free.
There's also the point
It's
of
cheap.
on this. Well, you will go ahead now.
There's also
Souls, it's free.
For exposure.
there's also coffee, which I've mentioned already, and then there are two new ideas that I don't think we've considered in the past for DebConf. One of them is that we have lecture and meeting rooms, right? For instance, right now we're sitting in room 329. I think, and this is a highly contentious issue, I think that if this room were called the Intel room,
This, let's see.
yeah.
Well, that's in every
Intel.
room.
And,
It would
and
be
that's the
small.
Google room, and that's and so on and so forth. And Intel gave us $2,000 to do that. Yeah,
Carry on.
I like that thinking though. It's not enough. That's absolutely correct. But just for the sake of argument, let's pick a number. Then that would certainly, rub some people badly who think that this over commercializes the
And it
conference.
promotes non-free software, possibly.
It does. All of that is absolutely true. But it does get us money, and it is not really changing the feel, the sort of like the conference content, anyway, that's one of the ideas. There's the same idea for DebCamp or DebCamp hack days that individual companies can sponsor these days. And then the final point is something that I've seen in a couple of conferences, which I like very much, is lottery prizes to be given out. And that is often combined with sort of like the homeroom assemblies in the morning prior to the first talk, whenever that may be. You just assemble all together for 20 minutes, and that is a time for the organizers to spread important announcements, for instance, about the day, cheese and wine party today. And in order to entice people to come to these events, a prize is given out. Yeah, and it would go like this. It would be like, Thiago won this prize, and then Thiago wouldn't stand up, right? And then Thiago wouldn't like that very much when he later found out, oh, hi, Thiago. And then it would just go on until somebody in the room took it. And that's been tablets and laptops and everything and so on. This is just an idea out there, whether we want this homeroom assembly and whether we could benefit from it. So, questions, comments?
Well, my comment is mostly this room assignment thing. I mean, I'm very worried about this in the sense that now I see it also that, for example, you have this DC schedule thing in IRC saying next session is blah, blah, blah. And if it says next session in the intro room, then it's really in the face of everybody all the time. In general, if we put it somewhere in the corner, then I wouldn't mind that much, but I don't think the sponsor would pay for it.
Right.
So I think anything which people really have to interact with is highly contentious. That's why we also considered having these booths or the job fair really only on the open weekend and well, the place where this is, and people who don't like it don't actually have to go there. Maybe this is already too much in the face, this is debatable. And but I'm generally thinking that once it's so visible to everybody, it really can let people not come. Yeah. We already talked with somebody who said probably somebody didn't come because there's no DebCamp. And
that's a different issue.
That's a different issue, but people are very sensitive to say, okay, total, this is not how it ran, Debian ran it, I'm not coming. Okay.
Yeah, one thing I say is that one thing is it's a sponsor as a provider, like the sponsor give us money, but we are the DebConf. When a room has a name of a sponsor, it's part of the identity of the conference. Like, I think it's too much. I think there's no prize. It's not enough. For me, it has no price because DebConf is not Intel or Google or HP. I know they are providing the resources, but it's something I wouldn't put. I wouldn't offer. Well, it's DebConf has something that is different from other technical conferences.
Okay.
Don't the rooms already have names?
The rooms have names, yeah.
City names.
Yeah, so I mean, then you could just tag on another name.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it would be
but-
like Berlin.
But it's different Intel.
Sponsored
Or-
by Intel, but maybe that doesn't have to go up on the IRC.
Are there arguments from people here for this, like that we could make it happen?
I mean, I think considering what's been said and also considering what he just said is kind of what I was thinking, or maybe it was you, I'm sorry. I was looking at my phone. I think that there is kind of a middle ground that can be found, because I mean, I definitely agree that like the identity of Debian and like or DebConf and like how we're different than other conventions or whatever is a worthwhile thing to consider. But I also think that, you know, corporate sponsorship is nice for the long-term growth of a conference.
Right.
As much as we dislike the possibility of becoming intertwined with, you know, capitalistic groups, it's something worth considering for long-term growth. But I think having, you know, to name the only small Germany city I know, the Freiburg room, you know, sponsored by Intel, and in the IRC it says, coming up in 10 minutes in the Freiburg room is blah, 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 and it just says sponsored by Intel somewhere in the room. I feel like that's something that the sponsor would be willing to pay for, and also doesn't, you know, shove it in your face. Like, because it already literally says Intel right there. If it just had the words in black text, sponsored, or this room sponsored by above it,
Right,
it would
but
be.
how do you do it if Intel is the platinum sponsor that we promised to put in all the banners, and then
You do it
my
on the door.
consulting company decides to sponsor
No,
the
you
room?
just have a different sign that says
You do it
this
on-
room is
I was
sponsored
just- I
by.
was just saying you could
but
have
not on
Intel-
IRC. So the bot should not
I mean,
mention the sponsor.
Anyway,
Yeah.
my worry on these
Yeah.
things is much higher level on the perks in general. That we have actually tried all these, well, not all these specific ones. But we have tried most of these similar things to most of these in the past. Not the rooms, but trying to get people to sponsor particular events and so on. There's two things. One is that most of the time the sponsors have not really responded that much on them. So there's and the other aspect though is that people have had problems in designing a way to make it work that doesn't make it much easier to get a high profile by paying a small amount of money for a particular event than by giving us money we can actually spend on the core things. Paying, say, so for example, the cheese and wine thing, say, if you want to allow them to sponsor that, you basically need to make it they're not just paying for the cheese and wine, but they actually pay 20 times the price or something.
Yeah, sure.
So that you get enough money to actually cover the core costs of accommodation and food and so on. The danger then is that it's not an interesting opportunity to them to.
No, pricing is going to be really hard. There's
So
no question.
the question is, at the moment, we actually we have problems already to negotiate sensibly with the sponsors and to get those conversations to happen. I don't really see that we have at the moment the manpower and experienced salespeople to push sponsors to do these things in addition to their current levels. I think in principle, if you had expert salespeople, you can do that. You get them to sign up to some level, and on top you say, why don't you also sponsor this, and keep on phoning them up every week until they agree. That's what you need to do. I mean, we had in the past when we had a much smaller team, we had Andreas actually did some of this, and he was literally phoning people up every day until they said, yes, I'll sponsor you, fine. But most people in Debian are not really willing to behave that way. And we don't have, at the moment, we have a shortage of people to do it. So the problem is at the moment, we do get enough money by doing the kind of simple things. So we just make it a simple decision for them. What level are you taking? We get an answer back, and we eventually write an invoice, and we eventually realize we've not got the money, and so on. If we make this much more complicated, firstly, designing it actually really needs someone with more experience than most of us have on this kind of stuff.
You mean the prices?
Yeah, to actually get it right. And then secondly, it needs a genuine sales effort and discussions, not just sending a brochure and waiting for them to respond.
I completely agree with both of these points. The design, as I envision it at the moment, is that there's always a fallback. If we don't sell any of these perks, because the sponsors chose to stay with the simple levels that they know from the last year, which don't change very much, then as long as we get enough money, we're just going to pay for them ourselves.
But the danger is the other way around, that the money just comes for these perks and we don't get the basic money. I don't know how, again.
Because the perks are only available to sponsors at levels.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I thought that, yeah. If you're not
Again, it depends how you design it. We have tried to design stuff before, and we have tried to sell these perks with limited access and so on. We have had particular events sponsored by sponsors before. So the general principle is something the team has already accepted, to have a particular party sponsored by someone or whatever. That is actually something we have done before. It shouldn't be contentious because it's already existing practice.
The question is the reality.
The question is here, if you're trying to push this as a big aspect, which it sounded like, then it's just a bit dangerous in relation to our availability of manpower and our experience actually getting it right. I just have a worry that we won't quite realize the implications correctly until we realize we've only got half the money, because actually, although they all paid for a perk, they went in at one level below and just paid for a perk. So
yeah, but then the perk was paid for.
It depends. Yeah, but the main costs are food, accommodation, and travel.
Okay.
So
right.
Hugely larger than the perk.
For instance, if we're talking about a gold sponsor at 10,000 who decides to go 5,000 silver plus conference dinner, then we get 5,000 plus the entire organization of the conference dinner, so we don't actually have to worry about the conference dinner. We can take that out of the budget. Basically.
Again, I don't, in principle, disagree with selling these. I just think it needs a lot of time and thought to exactly get those right, and to be considering what, again, basically one of the thought experiments that needs to be done is what if every sponsor goes one level below and pays for a small perk on top.
Yeah.
There are not that many perks.
There are not that many perks.
Well,
So
yeah, if
just
you
one
sponsor
question
the
there,
cruise,
because
yeah.
maybe you know when we last did it, that sponsors paid for events. Did we? How much? 20 times? You just said.
Well,
much
no,
paid?
but previously we have not done that properly. I mean, we
Right.
have not done it correctly, in fact, for this stuff. There's a lot of, for most of the specific stuff at the moment, we've basically just let them pay the price, which doesn't make sense at
So
all.
we thought about like twice at least. I mean, 20. I think that's quite.
Yeah.
No, but it depends what
But
it is,
depends
because
if
the
the
cheese
cheese
and
and
wine
wine is
say
for
$250 per person.
$500?
Yeah, it's 1,000.
Yeah, but it's the real cost of the cheese and wine, like the exposure
be
cost
also-
is many thousands.
In the cheese and wine
Yeah,
can
but
be-
not
Well,
20.
but not
Yeah, that
20,000.
20 was
I
too
know,
much.
but it
You
was-
said 20, but yeah,
Yeah, I'd say
maybe 5 or whatever. Yeah, it's
We've
hard to
done-
come up.
And it depends
with
how
a
the
number.
exposure is. It's a very difficult question. There's a fundraising law, right? I mean, we can
I
discuss
said
it.
20 times because it's 250 times €2.50 times
400,
300 people.
1,000. That was the point.
So it's 1,000
if you're assuming
organized-
400 people, like,
Yeah.
I was
Anyway,
assuming 250 people or something.
I would like to. We have, or at least I am Connie, who has experience in with FreshCon sponsorship. And who's-
Yeah, when I say experience in that, I really mean someone who's worked commercially in the area.
I think
of
Connie is
fundraising. I don't know if
she's a marketing person and she does fundraising. And we've talked about this, and I think the important consideration is that if we come up with a system by which we minimize the risk that we're going to get less money than we would have,
Yeah.
and if we ensure that the core conference, with all the things that we expect from it, including conference dinner, day trip, and cheese and wine party, and subsidized bar, and so on and so forth, if we can come up with that, then I firmly believe we should try it.
But how do you know that?
just
That's a thought experiment, and I think that if we are smart about it, we can put this in place and possibly make mistakes for DC15, as long as they are not going to threaten the core conference.
So what is the
I think we
aim
should try
here
it.
as well?
Yeah.
What is the aim? Because at the
Yes.
moment we get enough money to pay for DebConf.
The aim is to be able to fly more people to DebConf, to offer more at DebConf.
Well, this year we had a surplus of quite a few thousands.
That's because our bursaries team started work 7 weeks before the conference.
Yes, so if we raise the same amount of money, except we actually start earlier so we get a bit more,
Yeah.
and we run bursaries and other things better,
Yeah.
we already have enough to fly extra
Sure.
planes.
excuse
Sure.
me, but
I
what
don't- the
you have
que-
been
the-
saying as the extra wouldn't be flying more people.
No,
Like the day trip, conference dinner, like the other points that you mentioned, like
So the idea is to get more money. So, and
yeah,
Don't
but all,
don't
but
you
all,
worry, we
all
can
is going
spend
to be
it.
sold. But I mean, what is going to be sold is not
do
really
we
what.
need this extra money in exchange of?
Well, the question is it actually getting more? It's not clear we get more money from it
But
necessarily.
even
What if we get
is
it?
it worth it
I
to
think it's an
have this?
interesting question.
Is it worth it? The value of this explosion is worth it. What are we going to get? A huge or a perfect conference dinner or a day trip? I'm not sure if.
I see your point, and I think that but I'm probably sure that everyone in this room agrees that there comes a point at which you sold out too much, right? And that is incredibly difficult to find, and everybody will disagree on where exactly that point is. But I think we all agree that there comes a point, or there is a point at some point in time, where the conference has sold its soul, right? And I think that I personally think we are not at that point and not close to that point. I think there's potential of going a little bit more, giving a little bit more exposure to people in certain ways, and in return getting more money. And that money, how we use it, whether we use it for additional travel, whether we use it for additional offerings at the conference, whether we put it into a fund such that we already have all the money for DC16 right now and can do the sponsorship work for DC17 during DC16. These are all possibilities that I think we can then worry about, as long as we don't sell the soul. Yeah.
Yeah. It was also late for us.
Well, yeah.
Então, eu